Morning on the West Coast, Pacific time. Good midday in the mountains, and good afternoon on the East Coast. This is Lars Leicht from the Somm Journal.
And I'm Gillian Ballance from Treasury Wine Estates.
And we're here to welcome you to the very first Somm session, our educational webinar series brought to you by the Somm Journal, Tasting Panel Magazine, Treasury Wine Estates, and the Somm Foundation. We're going to be live the second Monday of each month at this hour, 11 a.m. Pacific. And we're going to be having quizzes for $500 scholarships for each session, leading up to a grand prize, which will be a trip to Crush Camp. So you're going to have, at the end of this session, so you start studying, taking your notes now, you're going to have a total of 3 hours between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. Pacific time today. And to take the test, once you sign on and register for the test, you have exactly 5 minutes and you get one shot, one try, because the test is going to be graded on the most correct answers in the shortest amount of time. And we're going to be releasing those results on Wednesday. So stay tuned, study up, and we may as well get started feeding all that information in. Gillian, what do you say?
Well, what do you think, Lars? Do you think everybody's been studying already, or?
I know I have been, because when we
all weekend.
Of course, that's how I spent my weekend. I studied with a glass of wonderful Stag's Leap Petite Sirah in front of me, and I know about 50 of our lucky listeners were able to get a bottle if they signed up on time to taste along with us. Maybe some people have it in their cellar too, I should hope. I was under the impression when we last spoke that Stag's Leap took its name from all the bachelor parties that take place in the tasting rooms. Turns out I was wrong.
Oh, well, that's hilarious. What a fun story to tell.
Well, why don't you please tell it? Share it with us. It's a great story.
Well, the romantic version is that back when the Wapo Indians inhabited this area, Napa Valley is called the Land of Plenty. This particular spot where I am sitting in front of today at Stag's Leap Winery was a very famous hunting ground. So they would hunt stag, and they would jump over the cliffs of the Palisades, which our winery property is butted right up against, and leap to their death.
Lovely.
So to the Indians, it looked like they were just disappearing into the sky.
Well, maybe they were disappearing into some wine country or some other vineyards over there. I don't know. I'd like to think there was a happier ending.
Yeah. I mean, there was also a gentleman named Richard Stagg who, there we go. There's the Palisades.
There's right your Palisades.
There, state vineyards. So the stag would be hunted and would leap. But like I was saying, there was also a gentleman named Richard Stagg, Stagg, that owned a ranch just on the other side of the Silverado Trail from here. So that's the less romantic version. We're sticking with the first one. And also not the bachelor party story, although I do like that. It's fun.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a few of those things that take place. But anyway, they're talking about a leap. Though I like this slide because it gives a great idea of the Palisades. Your definition of a Palisade, the legal definition, not in terms of mountains, is actually a fortress that's made up a defense buttress that they make using pikes and all, and that's obviously how that looks like a fortress. It's a natural outcropping, and it's beautiful. It looks like a palisades to defend, but in fact, it plays a serious role in the terroir there. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to give an overview. We'll talk a little bit about where the Stag's Leap district is. It's actually within Napa Valley. It's 6 miles north of Napa. It's a sub region of Napa Valley. It's 1 mile wide, 3 miles long, and it's about 3,000 acres total. About half of that, say about 1,500, is dedicated to vineyard. And you see what it's right against. It's right across the Palisades from Atlas Peak. It butts up against Yountville and surrounded by Oakville and Oak Knoll on either side. But it's a very special area.
Not very big, huh?
No. But special.
Yeah, very special.
Very unique. You know, when they started designating this area, there was a lot of work that went into it. This was done by a gentleman named Mendelsohn, an attorney, who did a ton of research onto the different aspects, studied the orography of the area and the geography, and he one of the things he isolated was, if you can see, if I think my cursor might be working here, as you can see where the word Stags is another outcrop of mountains, and to the left, and between that and the Palisades to the right, there's sort of this valley within a valley, they like to call it. Very neat area that, again, takes the cool air from the San Pablo Bay, from the Pacific, the cool Pacific breezes get sort of swept up there into a funnel. So it's very distinct. And here you can see what the impact of that cool air can be, that morning fog resting there. And then it burns off, obviously, later in the day. And the bare rocks heat up tremendously under the sun. And then at night, the cool breezes come back in and cool it out. It's sort of like an amphitheater based on that orography of the mountains on either side of it. Something very unique and special. The soils here are predominantly volcanic, and you've got some river sediment. It includes some loam and clay from the Napa River, which is one of the borders, and some volcanic deposits from the Vaca Mountains. The Vaca Mountains are actually, that's part of the Palisades are part of the Vaca Mountains. There's some erosions and gravelly, well-drained soils there that provide actually low vigor for the wine, so a lot of concentration, great intensity and flavor. They like to call it rock soft. The grapes planted there are 90% Bordeaux varietals, mainly Cabernet, which actually wasn't really planted there, even though there have been vineyards there since the 1890s. Cabernet just came on the scene in 1961. And of course, we all know about the famous Judgment of Paris in 1976 with the 1973 Stag's Leap Cabernet Sauvignon. But the wines are known for their softness, texture, and intensity. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Gillian, and let you talk us a little bit through the Stag's Leap. You see the apostrophe there, so we're no longer we're now honing in, going from the Stag's Leap no apostrophe district, one of the first areas that was really the first AVAs to really be based on geography, to now talk about one of its key producers, the Stag's Leap Cellars.
Great intro, Lars. Thank you so much. And yeah, it really is such a special area when you talk about a valley within a valley. And when you're standing here on the property in the late afternoon, you really feel those winds kicking up. And because of those two mountain ranges, it kind of stays and creates this bowl type of effect, but it really does kind of mitigate warm temperature. So we tend to think of, because we're in the southern end of the valley, maybe just slightly cooler and a little bit more influenced by that, which is amazing. And yes, you can see that our apostrophe is to the right. There was a 13-year lawsuit. We call it like the $10 million apostrophe or something, between Carl Dumani, who was the previous, what I like to call, steward of this amazing property, and Warren Winiarski. So they went to court to see who would keep the rights to the Stag's Leap name. Well, neither one of them won the rights to the Stag's Leap name, and we actually had to move our apostrophe to the right. And so that is kind of the story. There's Stag's Leap Winery, which is our winery, Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, which is over on the trail and about a half-mile south of here. And then, of course, to layer on some confusion, there is the district that you said Mr. Mendelsohn really petitioned so beautifully, and for many, many years, he built up thousands of pages of documentation.
It was almost 5 years worth of work, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so you couldn't really use it on the label until then, until that was official. And today, you know, we're still a pretty exclusive AVA. We're one of the smallest, and certainly there's only about 20 wineries here. And like you said, I mean, you can blink your eyes and be through Stag's Leap District in a very short time. But this is our beautiful label. If you guys have the Petite Sirah at home, you're probably looking right at it. Very similar. You know, we really haven't undergone too many changes to this very classic depiction of what I think of to be really one of the most historically archived and beautiful properties in all of Napa Valley. So, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about really the founder, and he is pictured here. That's Horace Chase with his beautiful bride, Minnie Meisner Chase, and she was the daughter of a California senator. So they were very well-to-do, and so when they met and married, Horace had to kind of make it his mission to build her something beautiful, a nice vacation spot, and so he did just that in 1890. The original estate, which is about 250 acres, actually belonged to Horace's brother. So he was able to purchase and cull away some of that land to found Stag's Leap. And you can see just to the right are one of our first bottlings. And by 1895, we actually had 100 acres of Mataro here on the Stag's Leap estate. Because as you said, Lars, Cabernet Sauvignon and the Bordeaux family of varietals really didn't take hold until what I think of as the kind of the second, kind of the renaissance for Napa, right? Because Stag's Leap Winery existed before Prohibition, had to survive that, couple world wars, some economic depression. And so it really wasn't until the 60s that you started to see this reinvestment in Napa Valley. So I'm really always very proud as a sommelier to bring this story to life and let people know that, you know, when we say that we are the estate that gave this district its name, gave this appellation its state of being, we are not kidding. But that's one of our earlier labels. Yeah, 40,000 gallons of wine were produced in 1893. Wow. Now that lawsuit ensued because during Prohibition, we weren't commercially producing wine, so we couldn't prove continuous production. It really wasn't until the 70s when Carl Dumani purchased the estate and started commercial production under the official Stag's Leap Winery name. So they kind of happened at the same time, Stag's Leap Wine Cellars and Stag's Leap Winery officially. But we were definitely here first.
That's cool. I've never tried a Mataro. I'd love to try that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. So this is just, again, I can't say enough great things about this property. And if you all have been here or you're coming to Napa Valley, please reach out. We would love to have you visit and toast you in person and give you more than just a bottle of Petite Sirah. But that's the Manor House. That's really the focal point, and it overlooks all of our fantastic estate vineyards. And it was built in 1890 out of stone from local quarries. And it really, that is the truest depiction of the house. It doesn't look much different today. The cars are different and the clothing is different, but this is still where we host everyone for our tremendous tastings. Now, during this era, Horace was forced to sell the property because he lost a lot of money, made some pretty bad investments. And the Grange family purchased this property in the early 1900s. And Frances Grange was destined to run this bed and breakfast property out of the Manor House. She still grew grapes and sold grapes, and we have plenty of ledgers and journals that prove that we were still growing a lot of fruit here. But she wanted to capture the tourists coming up from San Francisco to go bathe in the hot springs of Calistoga and maybe have them come and stay for a night or two. You could stay here in the Manor House 3 meals a day for $7. Mind you, also, this was during Prohibition. So we actually have a little speakeasy underneath the house that was created so that people could imbibe and stay up here, which was probably a little bit of a draw at that time as well to come and stay. She was responsible also for planting what we call our Neke de Malie vineyard, which pays homage to Horace, to the founder. And this is where we make that wine to this day. And that was planted in the early 1900s. Sometimes they would just leave the grapes on the vines, let them dry, press them into cakes, and sell those cakes so people could rehydrate at home and make their own bathtub version of Mataro. This is the original Stone Winery, which is also located on the property. And it's really quite beautiful. And that's the manor house today. Back to the right where you see those little pillars or columns, that was where Horace put in a pool, which we feel was one of the first in California, if not the United States. But that's the manor house as it stands today.
Gillian, roughly where in Stag's Leap District is the Stag's Leap Winery located? Because you've got the Stag's Leap Palisades to the east, you've got the Napa River to the west, the northern border is Yountville Crossroad, and then you go to those flatlands in the south. So where does Stag's Leap sit?
So we're about a mile south of the Yountville Crossroad. So the whole district is flanked by Yountville to the north and Oak Knoll District to the south. We're kind of in the northern end, close to Silverado, which is on the other side, at the western side of the trail. We're right next door to Schaefer Vineyard. So if anybody's been here and been there, that's pretty much right where our property is. And because this is the driveway leading up to the property, those are black walnut trees. So if you have delicate tires, I don't recommend certain times of year, those walnuts can get to you. And that's the Nicquet Malie vineyard that I was talking about, real hotbed of research by UC Davis in the 80s, because nobody knew what was planted there. It was just a mixed grape. You can see everything is like head train versus on the other side where you have the more modern kind of trellising and training system. So
the older vineyard is to the right.
Yeah, and we still produce one estate wine from that, which is Nicquet Malie, and it means never give in to misfortune. It was the Chase family motto, and so this house has that in a lot of different stained glass.
We could all use that saying today.
Really can. And fortunately, we have some good Petite Sirah to enjoy alongside that. So and so we have roughly 90 acres planted to grapes. It's roughly a third, and a third Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Petite Sirah. Because when Carl Dumani purchased this property and found these old vineyards that were planted in the 1900s, the majority of one of those vineyards was Petite Sirah. So he really wanted to keep it alive, right? It's one of California's original heritage grapes and really planted because it's pretty prolific. It will give you a wine of good body and alcohol and color intensity. So it was used a lot for blending as well back in the day. And we wanted to make a very bold statement with Petite Sirah. And there's, not very many wineries that produce it. There's, I'd say less than 750 acres planted in Napa Valley. That's our state.
I love Petite Sirah. I guess that's one of the reasons and I always find there's not a lot that's very petite about it.
There is not very much that is petite about it, exactly. And, it is such a wonderful, interesting grape variety. I believe it makes up about 0.2% of the red wines that are sold out of California. So not widely consumed, not very well known. And again, this is one of the great things about having this heritage varietal here. And I do think we make one of the better examples of Petite Sirah.
So it's 85% Petite Sirah, 6% Syrah, 6% Grenache, and 3% of mixed Rhônes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. And this is, I think, our only wine that we use all American oak on. And I don't think that on the nose you really get a sensation of that at all.
Not at all. Not with a grape like that. It really shines through.
So if everybody is ready and there aren't, hi Jody Bronstein, hi everybody, really, it's so good to see you all. And I'm just, it just warms my heart to see all your names, and I love you all and I hope to see you out here soon. Yes, Jody, 100% American oak. You are correct.
Cool. I'm going to take the liberty of answering one of these questions here and remind you that
Okay.
on that test, we're actually going to be sending the links out. If you registered, we have your email and you're going to be getting the link for the test right afterwards. So don't worry.
Yeah, there will be a link, and as Lars mentioned, an opportunity to win a scholarship
Yeah,
to
that's very
advance
cool.
your studies. Hi, Colin. Hi, Alec. Look at all of our friends.
That's cool.
Look at all of our lovely people out here.
By the way, the attorney who put together the AVA was Richard Mendelson, a
Oh,
fantastic guy. You
Richard,
should
right. And
look up
didn't you
some of
write a
his
book just on the Stag's Leap District?
Yep, and that whole experience, which was amazing. Like I said, nobody had ever really done an AVA based on terroir before, and of course there was, it's always never without any controversy, and it took them for 4 or 5 years. So nothing good comes quickly, as we know. So
Absolutely. I see a couple more questions.
people are all excited about that Mataro.
Right? Has Stag's Leap thought about making 100% Petite Sirah? It is an underrated grape. You're absolutely right, Eugene, and that's a great question. One of which I cannot answer. I think we blend in some other varietals to help kind of mitigate those pretty harsh tannins because the grapes are so small. They're such a small skin to juice ratio. It's easy to extract both a lot of tannins and a lot of color out of this wine very, very quickly. So I think our winemaker, Christophe Paubert, has a great sensitivity to that and really kind of coaxes this grape variety pretty well. Fabian, is that new oak? We use about 25% new American oak. The rest will be 1, 2, and 3 year barrels, I believe.
I have a question for you, Gillian. The source of the fruit, is this a single vineyard or is it from different vineyards on the property or different areas?
It's partially from our estate vineyards, and then we have been, well, as you know, I mean, replanting programs are going on all the time. So we have about 4,500 acres in the Napa Valley that we own and farm. So we have grafted over some Merlot vines to Petite Sirah because of the demand for this wine and because Christophe really believes in kind of how the terroir kind of matches this. So it's estate vineyards, but it's not from the actual property.
Okay.
It's just surrounding some from Yountville and some, I believe, from the Oaknell district.
Great.
So.
And hey, I also want to give a shout out to Liz Tosh as in Latosh, Liz Tosh MW.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Liz.
Liz is going to actually be writing the recap that's going to be in the January-February Sommelier Journal, Somm Journal. So be on the lookout for that. She's taking furious notes as we speak, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I hope everybody, why do the French call the grape Durif in California? That is because that was the doctor that crossed Pelersen with Syrah. So he named it after himself. Good question. So
Durif was Petite Sirah, not Syrah.
Well, one of the parents. So
okay.
I think the dad was Syrah, the mom was Pelersen.
Okay.
And Dr. Durif crossed them in Montpellier, and it was kind of transplanted over here. You know, back in the 1880s, we were still experimenting with what varietals worked here. So we were getting a lot of cuttings from Europe and seeing what worked. And that's when this was first came over to the U.S. So I guess I hope everybody has, Jody says, fun fact, Retro makes 100% Pelersen from Hell Mountain.
Wow.
Yeah. This is so great. Thanks for all the wonderful questions, everybody. So are we ready to try the wine?
I would love to.
I know you have been, but
I'd love to hear your descriptors of it.
I mean, I was hoping that our winemaker would be able to put winemaking aside and join us for a few minutes today.
Oh, he's got to be too busy these days.
I know. It's been a crazy harvest for sure. I think this is one that our winemakers will remember forever.
And there he is, masked up.
Hi, Christophe. We have about
Hello.
78 beverage professionals all on the line today to taste the wonderful Petite Sirah. Christophe, you've been making wine here since 2009, so you have quite a long history and familiarity with the estate, the vineyards, and also Petite Sirah. But I'm just curious to know, and I think probably everybody tuning in is as well, what you see its most unique and positive attributes are for you in particular as a winemaker, and why you feel it does so well kind of in the terroir of the Stag's Leap district.
So the main thing about me as a winemaker of Petite Sirah, and I recommend people, if you want to make wine, we have never made wine, make Petite Sirah. That's the simplest wine to make. Cabernet, Merlot, other varieties needs to little tweak and macerate for a long time.
I noticed you didn't mention Pinot Noir because that's really
It's complicated.
Right?
No, Pinot Noir. No. I have the thing. I need to tell you something. There is two types of winemakers in the world. People who have made Pinot Noir, people who haven't made Pinot Noir. I am the second category. But I recognize the complexity of making Pinot Noir. I wouldn't tell people start making Pinot Noir. But Petite Sirah is so full, so giving, so exuberant, I would say, that honestly, you have the impression the thing doesn't need a winemaker. It does its own thing. It's like a cat. You can be sure of the result. So contrary of Cabernet, where we very often macerate 2, 3, 4 weeks on skin, taste every day, and tweak little thing and get there. Petite Sirah, we barely keep it longer than it takes for the fermentation to finish. So that means 8 to 10 days, and we drain. So what is a bit counterintuitive is if you take any book of winemaking, they tell you the ageability of a wine is going to depend on how long you keep the wine on the skin. Actually, the Petite Sirah with short maceration is very, very ageable. So it goes against the law, like cat, I was telling you. And it doesn't follow the rule, but Petite Sirah is one of the most ageable variety you can find. And because one of the reasons, I don't know everybody on the call, but we really enjoy all wines when they still keep a fresh note of fresh fruit.
Yeah.
And when you have all the fruit gone, that's another word. And but Petite Sirah has this fresh aromatic, very often of strawberry that keeps very long with the wine and many years. So it's a very ageable wine, even if it doesn't stay on skin for a very long time. And we do 2 pumping overs during a few days. I am kind of linking. I am very scientific minded, so I link very old technique that we understand with the modern science. And so we do a few pumping overs, lots of oxygen, natural oxygen we splash outside of the tank. It's not micro-ox or thing like that. And very quickly, so I check my color, my tannins every day, and that peaks very quickly, very high. And when we have everything we need in wine, we stop. So sometimes the Petite Sirah gets what? 6, 7, 8 pumping overs to get the one you have in the glass. Very concentrated. And the thing, Petite Sirah being so full of tannins and everything, the risk would be to be a bit rustic. So to shorten a bit the maceration, to tweak and let it be without doing too much, keeps it high hop elegant. For me, I like big wines. The bigger the wine, the more elegant it has to be. So I try, and I don't put my ego in the thing. It's not a contest of everything. So I keep it on skin. The time it needs to be pretty elegant, full and big, but not overbearing, not too aggressive. That would be the danger of it.
Christophe,
I think 2017, because of the kind of the warmth of the vintage, really showed this wine off very beautifully. We're getting a lot of comments that it's very ripe and very lush. And Christophe, we have a question about how the different AVAs affect the character of Petite Sirah in your mind, because our taster says she's had examples from St. Helena, from Rutherford, from Stag's Leap. They all have different characteristics. Is that a clonal thing, or?
So I have to say this wine, so you mentioned that, I think a lot of Petite Sirah in the valley has been planted because of us. When Caldomani had too much demand and he couldn't make enough wine on the property, he worked with growers all along the valley. And even if I am very focused on the south of the valley for everything else, the Petite Sirah is very interesting because, yes, we can see difference between Calistoga and Coombsville. And I would say the interesting fact and part of it is the northern part, which is Calistoga. It's a bit less concentrated than the southern part, which makes sense because heat and sun can consume some of the tannins and polyphenols. And and the most floral part is in Calistoga, which is the warmest part. And you go down the valley, we have a Petite Sirah in Coombsville, which is very big, very bold, more tannins, more color than Calistoga actually. And a third of this wine is coming from the estate, which has a bit of both. It's very very vivid, very both floral and spicy and earthy. So at the end, this wine, it's the only wine we really source from Calistoga to Coombsville. And each of the part brings something a bit different, but all of them are very powerful and showing this exuberance of the Petite Sirah.
And obviously you prefer American oak for this varietal. If you could touch on that.
So I have to say, I put a few barrels from time to time in French oak. I like it, I enjoy it. The thing is, there is two reasons for what we are doing here. The first thing, when I arrived in 2009, this wine was already iconic, and I wasn't here to change an icon. I was here as a steward to continue what was done before me, and you know, you don't know where you go if you don't know where you come from. And there was a lot of history here about Petite Sirah, so I didn't want really to mess up with it. I wanted it even cleaner, even more in the style of what we wear, if I can say that. And so it was already 25% American oak. After that, the idea of American oak with Petite Sirah is a really good one because it's like pairing food. A lot of sommelier, I heard in the call?
A lot of the best.
I like pairing food.
Best and the brightest.
And the Petite Sirah being very strong as it is, if you would put what I like usually a very elegant French, almost inconspicuous French oak, it would be completely lost there. So we use American oak that is really a bit more powerful, but we use less, 25% compared to 35 to 37 to 50 to sometimes 80% of new French oak. There is only 25%. And the interesting part of the American oak, there is some spiciness about it that is really reinforcing the natural spiciness of the Petite Sirah. As I say, making it even more Petite Sirah than it is. So it's not deviating the Petite Sirah from the expression. We are very careful about the quantity we use of American oak, but I think it's a good pairing. It's a very, very good pairing. And this wine has been again recognized for what it is using American oak. I wouldn't mess up with that, and that works very well. The interesting thing is, when I arrived at Stag's, I was telling you I am pretty scientific minded. And so the Petite Sirah stays only, it is going to be bottled this vintage in March of the following year. So it stays in barrel around 12 to 13 months. And when I arrived at Stag's, for me, the bigger the wine, the longest you should keep it in oak. And so I was questioning it. And one day my assistant told me, but Christophe, do you like the wine? I told her, yes, I like it. So she told me, why do you want to change it? I had to think about it. She had the point. But I can't do anything without being capable to explain why I do it. So there is two things there. If you bottle earlier, you keep more aromatic freshness. And I think people who like our Petite Sirah, they like that. If you keep the wine longer in barrel, you can soften even more the tannins. But I think people who like Petite Sirah, I think they are on for it. They like these tannins. So now I can explain why we aged the cab for 18 to 20 months and why we aged the Petite Sirah, which is counterintuitive, the biggest wine, shorter. But I keep more aromatic freshness, and the tannins are naturally also not that aggressive, even if the quantity is pretty high. And I think, again, this aging of 12 to 13 months in oak really defines also what this wine is, and it would have been a mistake to change that. It works.
Well, you make beautiful Cabernet Sauvignon as well. Actually, all the wines that you make here are beautiful. Viognier, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc. But to me, like, this wine really has a lot of complexity to it. There are so many layers, Lars. What do you get out of the wine?
Oh, there's so much going on. It's deep. It's rich. It's got some beautiful. There's a little bit of mocha on there, a little coffee, just round, and it's a. I don't know that I would call it an iron fist in a velvet glove, but there's a lot of velvetiness to it.
Yeah. I don't know, Christophe, if you ever went to the Met Steakhouse in Seattle, but they have a huge sign on the bar. They've been serving this wine by the glass for like 16 years.
Oh, more than that. So I don't want to say, but even more than that.
Oh, even more than that. Okay.
I think we are close to the 30 years now.
Do you feel like that's what's contributed to the success? Because that is such a busy restaurant full of like business travelers that will go home and try to seek out this bottle of wine.
Come on, Gillian, you know it's the opposite. The Petite Sirah by the glass contributed to the success of the restaurant.
Good one. Good one. I like it.
But, you know, Petite Sirah is not, a lot of people know Petite Sirah, but it is not the first variety that come to people's mind when they talk about Napa Valley. But the success of Caldomani, putting that on the market, being successful about it, is all about passion. It's when you do something a bit different than other people, you can totally overcome this handicap by passion. And that's the same thing. I think the people who sell our wine all through the country, whatever it's people who sell to the distributor to the restaurant, the restaurant to the consumer. All of these people are passionate about it. And I think this restaurant, they just believed in it. They are hand selling it. Now it became a staple of the restaurant, and they don't have to do that anymore because people think about the restaurant and the meat and the Petite Sirah together as a unique pleasure of combining the three of them. So, but again, every time you do something a bit not mainstream, you will overcome that with passion. And Petite Sirah is all about passion. Everybody who makes Petite Sirah is passionate about it. And people who like Petite Sirah, they love it, and they are very good to talk about it. And that's a passionate wine. That's why it's fun, because it's the easiest wine to make. So
yeah, that's what I've heard you say over time. Jose says he gets a lot of savory spice out of the wine. Yeah. Cumin, bay, laurel, toasted coriander. Do you feel like this wine lends itself to maybe things that have a little bit of spice, or like spice rubbed meats or something like that?
Completely, yeah. Any meat. What I love with black pepper. I think it's a personal thing. I love black pepper. I think black pepper is so available everywhere. People forget how beautiful black pepper is. I love peppery wine. But that's the thing. It's Petite Sirah has something a bit unique about it, and it's that I don't know lots of wine blending all together all the families of aromatic you can find in wine. It can be earthy. Very often it's all together. Earthy, floral, spicy, fruity. It's all of that. So it's why people usually talk about layers about this wine, because you can find that. And if you summarize it, it has all what can any wine bring in the same glass. plus lots of power, lots of aromatic intensity, lots of tannins. I recommend good fat with it. Good meat with fat is perfect. Cracked pepper on the top. It's awesome.
Yeah, we're definitely going into autumn and winter months, so long braised meat dishes as well. Fantastic.
And I love what I love with this wine in summer, but you can do that all year long. Is a rack of lamb because it's very fatty, and you put some Mediterranean herbs. I don't like to say Italian because I'm French, so it's a Mediterranean, and because we have the same in French. But that's rack of lamb, salt, pepper, a few of Mediterranean herbs. And the Petite Sirah with that, it's difficult to beat a pairing like that because you have the aromatics that goes very well, plus the tannins fighting the fat of the lamb. That's unbelievable to do. And very simple. What I mean is very pure. The meat itself, even if you put a bit of herb, it's very pure. And like,
yeah, nothing to challenge. They just kind of sing alongside each other.
Right.
And Christophe, how many cats do you have?
I was adopted by one cat. She came to me, so okay.
And of course, you know that the fire smoke question is going to come up from somewhere because curious minds out there in the United States want to know how we fared because they didn't really get all the news. And Rachel says, were you able to bring in all the fruit from the vineyards that you work with?
Yes, we were. And we are talking about 17, so we had some experience that year already. And we learned a lot. And this year is very similar than happened in 17. So in 17, we did the same thing that we did and we are still doing this year. We do two things. We taste everything, and we put also this wine through a machine that can tell us if there is any sign of molecules that could be part of smoking. And 17, we used everything. And so far what we do, so what I can say is if we see something that is not right, we will not put it through the blend. That's very simple. That's very straightforward. But so far, that's the thing. We don't have, we like to make focused wine. So I love mountain fruit, but for me, or you make mountain fruit or you make valley floor. You need to choose where you live if you want to make a focused wine. So we focused on the valley floor, on beautiful south of the valley floor for the majority. And when the big of the smoke was happening this year, my Petite Sirah was all harvested already. That was good. And but the valley floor, we don't find, we are like 17 or so far, we don't find any taint. If you are close to in the mountainside, close to a very strong fire, that's another story. 17 of this year, we haven't found any lot which we are not going to use or even questionable. So we are lucky. Just for people who know that, who are interested, there is a lot of, there's still not enough studies for that, but based on what happened in Australia, and that doesn't make sense in a certain way, if you have smoke while the berries are still green before variation, the berries keep the smoke taint much easier, even if it is a long time ago, a long time before picking, than when it happened just before picking. What's happening there, we don't understand the chemistry of it, but it seems the taint, if it happens, it's much more likely to happen when the berries are still green.
I would have expected the opposite.
Yeah, it would be the opposite because you expect that to flushed away,
right?
But it is what for the people who have had experience with it. Yeah,
that's fascinating. And just the last question here, because every time I come to Stag's Leap Winery, I just kind of am overwhelmed by the beauty here of the estate vineyards, of the manor house, of the old winery. What's your favorite part of the estate?
It's difficult for me always. When I have a question, I need to pinpoint one thing. I am always in trouble because I like complexity and diversity. But I am going to tell you a personal story. So when in 2009 I joined the company, it was very fast and I didn't have a place to stay for a few days and I stayed on the property. And one of my hobbies is photography. And I didn't have TV, I didn't have anything. I was there with my camera. So every day after work, I was taking my camera, and it was July, so the days were very long, and I was taking photos. And it is what I like about this property is when you go there, you just scratch the surface because you can see the beauty of the overall place. But after that, you can see so many little details that makes this beautiful place, and it is endless. So what I like about this place is of course, it's very picturesque with a palisade behind and all of that. But what I like is when you begin to dig a bit, you can find little places, little this, little that. That is like a treasure hunting. You can find things everywhere. That's what I really like about the place.
Yeah, I agree. There's just everywhere you look, there's something special and unique. Well, thank you so much, Christophe. You have really made this tasting very special. Yes, Lars, sorry.
I just want to throw one more question to Christophe, if I may, please. Thank you, Gillian. So, Christophe, if you can generalize a little bit about how Petite Sirah behaves in the old world, as opposed to, obviously, it's found a shining place in the new world. But are there some common threads from old world to new world, and are there some stark differences between the two places?
Oh, that's a very good question, but I am going to reply in a way that not match what the question is for some reason. So I have never but it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I have never tested a Petite Sirah from Europe ever. The thing is, the Petite Sirah, as Gillian was mentioning, was really beginning to spread around in the 1880s. But you know, the story of French wine is very long, and there is not, if I may make a mistake, but as I know, there is not one appellation where Petite Sirah is part of the list of the cepage.
Officially.
No, but so that means if you would use it, you would lose your appellation.
Of course.
So after that, I met, but I haven't drank the wine, traveling to promote Petite Sirah and our wine. Some people, one in Conjuron, he said, okay, I love Petite Sirah. I am planting. I know another one also in Cahors, I think. They are planting that. They know they will not have the appellation, but they know they are the people who buy their wine, and they say, if I don't make too much, I will be able to sell it at the normal price, even if it's vente pays, but I'm sure I can sell it. So again, what is behind is passion. There are people passionate about it, and they go for it. But that takes a little risk because you don't have the main appellation there. After that, many years ago, I had a bus of people from France, from Madeira and Tursan, and visiting the winery. And some of them had some Petite Sirah, and they really did. It was too small for them to really understand, and they were very happy to come here and to see what the variety was about. Because that's funny, they had some, they didn't really understand what they were dealing with. And when they visited, they were very happy that we could taste the Napa Valley. We have also this, I don't know, Gillian, if you talk about the Neke de Malis block that was planted in 1929. Mm-hmm. So they could see this variety, and they told me, oh, now I know what I have. I know what I can expect. And they were very happy about that. So it's not easy. Maybe, so I know a few people, another person I was saying from Cahors came to visit 2 years ago because he knew our wine. He come very often to Pont He's on in America, and he paid the ticket from the East Coast to come here to spend a day with me, to see the vineyard, to taste with me. And he planted a block in Cahors of Petite Sirah. So again, there is a few passionate people, but they take a risk, but they when they see the wine it makes, they go for it anyway. So they don't have lots of experience of Petite Sirah from Europe at all. And that's the thing. Petite Sirah the Dr. Burif was working on the Petite Sirah. He was trying to breed or to reproduce. Breeding is another thing. Reproduce some different varieties. He wanted to make a variety resistant to powdery mildew. and he succeeded. It's pretty good resistance of powdery mildew. The funny thing, it's very sensitive to botrytis. So guess what? This variety that is resistant, sensitive to botrytis, made it very well in California, which is very dry, and in Australia, which is very dry. Right. So in a certain way, as I say, it's like an immigrant. Petite Sirah is like an immigrant in the same, because nobody wanted it in Europe, so he may immigrate here into to Australia.
It's like the Carmenere and Malbec story.
Place in where it was from. So, but yeah, it's interesting that to see that this sensitivity to botrytis, this variety did very well where it is quite dry.
And we did get one last question, if we can get that in, Christophe. Sorry, before you go back to making.
I love questions. That's the thing. I hate to talk by myself. I can do that all day long.
Liz, it's resistant to powdery mildew, is what Christophe said, but not to botrytis.
Right.
Yeah. And then, how does Petite Sirah fare with global warming?
It's a very nimble variety, honestly. It works very well in very low. In very low water supplement. I haven't seen south Coombsville, south of the valley. I can't say it's cool compared to other regions in the world, but it does very well over there. Beautiful. It does very well in Calistoga. So that is very nimble, very nimble, and that would be interesting to try to grow it in even cooler areas to see what it does. But you know, Cabernet, if it is too cold, it's going to be green pepper. It is going to be not that great. Petite Sirah doesn't have green pepper at all. So it will be interesting to see in again cooler weather, because you can do something very interesting actually, because you don't have this veg overwhelming sometimes expression than other variety can have. So it's I haven't seen it, but I think it is very nimble anyway. Yeah.
Maybe British Columbia. We'll go plant some Petite Sirah in British Columbia.
No, even here I haven't seen. So I know there is in Paso in Central Coast, there is some of there. It's really good.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, it's an interesting. Again, if you want to make wine, make Petite Sirah. The thing is, when you are done with that, do Pinot Noir.
Great.
Just for punishment.
Yeah.
No, I love Pinot Noir. The punishment, but it's a bit more complex.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Well,
all right.
Yeah, we're coming up on our bewitching noon hour here. So again, thank you so much, Christophe, for making this a very special and engaging and wonderful tasting of Petite Sirah.
Thank you, everybody. That's the thing. If I make wine and nobody sells it and help us, it's no use. So it's all on me.
Thank you, Christophe.
Thank you, Christophe. Merci.
Thank you.
Fantastic having you.
Okay.
So yeah, I think Lars, you're going to go over some specifics.
Yep.
Next steps. Okay.
So the quiz is going to be mailed to everybody who has registered. You have the option. You will have 3 hours. So starting from 2 o'clock Pacific time until 5 o'clock. The minute you open it, the timer starts. You get 5 minutes with it. Otherwise, as they used to say on Mission Impossible, it'll self-destruct. You get one try at it only, and the most correct answers in the shortest amount of time is what's going to get you that prize, that $500 scholarship. And we'll be releasing the results on Wednesday. So have another bottle of wine ready to toast with and cheer yourselves.
Yeah, and I think there was a question, if you're outside of the United States, can you still win the scholarship money? And I don't want to speak and be wrong, but I'm going to say yes, you can. And also the winners get access to the Global Diagram of Wine through Somm Foundation. So you get access to that for 1 year as well, which is pretty exciting. And so this is a program that we are going to be doing for the next 5 months. This was the first one, as Lars mentioned.
Yep.
And so there are 15, wait, let me do the math, 18 chances to win scholarship money through Somm Journal, Somm Foundation, and Treasury Wine Estates. And
the grand prize.
Yeah, and the grand prize, which is coming to Napa to participate in Harvest in our crush camp next September. So that is also a great win as well.
So we're going to be tuning back again on December 7th. And it was fun. Christophe mentioned that he had the choice of mountain fruit or valley fruit, and he chose for this wine, chose valley fruit. Well, on December 7th, we're going to be discussing mountain fruit at its finest with Beringer.
Yeah, and hopefully Mark Beringer too.
Yeah, that would be great. Great.
We'll see. Well, this was amazing. Lars, I cannot thank you enough for co-hosting with me today and bringing all of your amazing knowledge and insight into Stag's Leap District. And thank you, all of you beautiful sommeliers and beverage people out there. Can't wait to see you out here in Napa and toast in person.
Well, thank you, Treasury. Thank you, Somm Journal Tasting Panel. Thank you, the Somm Foundation, for all the great stuff you guys are doing in these challenging times. And you remember, you can see this recording will be available, I know, on the Somm Journal website, through the Somm Journal website, as well as our YouTube, and I believe on Treasury's as well, Gillian?
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I mentioned, in the January, February issue of the Somm Journal, Liz Tach, Master of Wine, is going to be presenting her recap of this webinar and hopefully cleaning up at least some of my act a little bit. So thank you. Gillian, it's been an honor presenting with you, and it was great to have Christophe on
yeah, so great. Okay, thank you, and be well, everyone. And we'll be notifying winners shortly. So go on, take the quiz, and win some fabulous prizes.
Amen.
Okay.
Wasn't there a promotion years ago somewhere when they were talking about Petite Sirah, and the tagline was "P.S. I love you." So I think I can say that, certainly about Stag's Leap. P.S. I love it.
Yep. And I can say it about all of our people who are logged in today as well.
We love you.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Stay well.